Welcome to the Explainer. So glad you're joining us today. If you've ever felt like your smartphone kinda has a mind of its own, or let's be real, if you've been drafted as the unofficial unpaid IT support for your entire extended family, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're diving deep into software-based device management. We're going to look at how you can completely master the phone right there in your hand, and then how to take those exact same tricks and apply them to a device sitting halfway across the world. But real quick, let me ask you, have you ever tried fixing your parents' phone, or maybe a friend's tablet, completely blindly over a regular phone call? Yeah, we've all been there. You're basically yelling, tap the gear icon, no, the other gear icon, top right, no, your other right. It is a universally frustrating pain point, right? It's literally like trying to guide someone through a maze while blindfolded. Well, what if I told you we're solving that permanently today? Through the absolute magic of software, we're going to eliminate that blind guesswork forever. All right, let's dive into the agenda for today's explainer. We're going on a bit of a micro to macro journey. We'll start with 1, mastering your own device, and 2, navigating hardware limitations. Then we scale it all the way up for 3, the remote support revolution. We'll dig into the details with 4, remote control for Android, and 5, Apple's native remote control. And finally, we'll wrap up with 6, security and scam prevention, because managing all this access safely is absolutely crucial. So, jumping right into section 1, mastering your own device, the power of Assistive Touch. Okay, before we can start remote controlling someone else's phone, we really need to get ultimate software control over our own screens. You've probably noticed modern smartphones are just massive now. Reaching across a 6-inch screen with one hand, not always practical. Now, if you're an Android user, you might have seen your iPhone friends using that handy little floating feature called Assistive Touch. Android's built-in version is honestly a bit rigid, so that's exactly where an app like Floatify comes in. It's totally free, and it gives you this highly customizable floating button for one-handed shortcuts. It basically brings that really comfortable iOS-style muscle memory right over to Android. And honestly, the best part? No root access or complicated tech hacking required. You literally just download it, give it that standard display over other apps permission, and boom, you've got a smart button floating right where your thumb naturally rests anyway. So the crucial point here is how you actually map this new button to speed up your daily workflow. Based on Floatify's own user data, these are the top 5 actions people set up. A single tap to take a screenshot, double tap to jump home, or a long press to instantly lock the screen. You can even map it to fire up your flashlight or adjust the volume. And this isn't just about saving your thumb from awkward stretching, it actually saves your physical hardware buttons from thousands of clicks of wear and tear over the life of your phone. Which brings us perfectly to section 2, navigating hardware limitations, buttonless solutions. Because what happens when those physical buttons actually break? Or, and this is happening way more often now, what happens when your phone manufacturer just decides to completely remap your power button? Imagine you hold down the power button, fully expecting the phone to shut down, and instead it summons Gemini AI or some other voice assistant. You might feel totally stuck. But here's the secret. You never actually need physical buttons to control the core functions of your device. It's all baked right into the software. If your physical power button is suddenly tied up chatting with AI, all you got to do to power down an Android phone is just swipe down from the very top of the screen to open notifications, swipe down a second time to expand your quick settings, and then just tap that little power options icon on the screen. From there, select power off or restart. Simple. It's a brilliant little software workaround that proves you're never actually at the mercy of your physical hardware. All right, moving on to section 3, the remote support revolution, from micro to macro. Now that we know how to master the device right in our hand, how do we take that exact same software mindset and use it to help other people? We're taking our skills from the micro level in front of us to the macro level, literally helping someone across the globe. But look, we have to be realistic about the friction here. Just listen to this incredibly relatable app review from a user named Steve. He says, trying to get an 86-year-old to reinstall, install new software, and set permissions is asking a bit much. Steve hit the nail on the head. When you're trying to help a senior citizen, or frankly anyone who just isn't super tech savvy, every extra download, every pop-up permission, it's a massive barrier. And that perfectly sets up exactly why we need streamlined, purpose-built apps that make connecting as frictionless as humanly possible. And that brilliantly illustrates why we're jumping into section 4, remote control for Android, bridging the distance. Picking the right third-party tool is absolutely vital when you're trying to do cross-platform troubleshooting. There are a few heavy hitters in the Android remote control space, but they all work a little differently. Let's look at TeamViewer first. They use an ID code system, and you gotta be careful which version you pick. TeamViewer Host is for unattended access, while Quick Support means the person on the other end has to actively accept your connection. Also, keep in mind, TeamViewer actually limits free to private users to just 5-minute sessions. Crazy, right? Then you have AirMirror. They use a super simple 9-digit code, but it does require the target device to have an app called AirDroid Remote Support specifically installed. And finally, AnyDesk. They use an address ID, but to get actual full control, like the ability to physically click and swipe for them, not just watch their screen, AnyDesk often requires installing a secondary control plugin AD1 and turning it on deep in the Android accessibility settings. But despite all those differences, they all basically rely on what we can call a digital handshake. First, you download the support app onto the target device, the broken phone. Second, that app generates a unique identifier, like AirMirror's 9-digit code. Third, you type that exact code into the controlling device you're holding. And fourth, the person who needs help just taps accept on their screen to grant permission. Once that handshake is done, you are in. You can tap, scroll, swipe, and type on their phone exactly as if you were sitting right next to them on the couch. Let's pivot slightly to Section 5, Apple's native remote control, the iOS 18 shift. While Android relies heavily on all those third-party apps we just went through, Apple has a very different philosophy. They want everything built seamlessly into their own ecosystem. And with the release of iOS 18, Apple introduced a native FaceTime Remote Control feature. Honestly, it's absolute magic. During a standard FaceTime video call with, say, your mom or dad, you can actually request to share their screen. But here's the kicker. You aren't just looking at it anymore. You can directly manipulate their iPhone or iPad. You can dive into their settings, fix their Wi-Fi, reorganize their messy home screen, all while actively talking to them face-to-face on the video call. No third-party apps, no 9-digit codes to read out loud, just seamless, built-in remote assistance. It's a total game changer. However, we really need to turn to Section 6, Security and Scam Prevention, with great power. Because having the ability to completely take over a device from miles away, it's an incredible tool for good, but we have to set firm security boundaries. When you start these remote sessions, especially on Android apps like AnyDesk, you're often going to see a really stark system warning. It usually says something like, your screen is being cast. Do not share your OTP or password with anyone. You absolutely must pay attention to this. Scammers rely heavily on these exact same remote support tools. They'll call up an unsuspecting victim, pretend they're from Microsoft or a big bank, convince them to install TeamViewer or AnyDesk, and then use that screen sharing access to literally steal one-time passwords and drain bank accounts. Protecting a device from bad actors is just as important as fixing it for your friends. So here are the absolute golden rules. First, always, visually or vocally verify the person on the other end of the connection before you grant access. Second, never under any circumstances open your banking apps or type in passwords while a session is active. Third, stay super alert for that persistent screencasting icon up in your status bar, so you always know when you're being watched. And finally, when you're all done helping your parents fix their phone, go into their settings and actually revoke the app's accessibility permissions, or honestly, just uninstall the Quick Support app entirely until the next time they need you. We have definitely covered a lot of ground today in this explainer. From setting up virtual buttons to make your own giant phone easier to hold, all the way to reaching through the internet to magically fix an iPad during a FaceTime call. You now have the knowledge and the superpowers to become the ultimate family IT support and to do it safely and securely. So I'll leave you with this final thought. With all this incredible software power right at your fingertips, who will you help first? Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.